Welcome to Acorn to Oak with Penny Quayle Pierce and co-host Matthew Donachie. Within each acorn, there is the DNA that strives to be a mighty oak tree. All it needs to reach its potential for greatness is to be activated. You are the acorn. On this show, we will share with you the tools and guidance you need to grow into the person you are meant to be. And now your host, Penny Quayle Pierce and co-host Matthew Donachie.
Hey, good evening and welcome to the show. Get my teeth back in. And we're talking about when you awaken your heart. So I'm just going to hand over to Matthew so he can say good evening. And then we'll get on with the chat.
So good evening, everybody. Good to be back. Hope you enjoyed the last show. Got a cracking show for this evening, so buckle up because it's an exciting one.
Yeah, well, aren't they all? Aren't they all? And it's been I was just talking to Matthew earlier on. It's been an interesting day for me. And when you awaken the possibilities for miracles, we're just in the middle of putting our house on the market, and we had some photographs of the house taken of the realtor in America or the real estate person in the UK came round and took the photographs, and by 2:30 we had a first viewing. So I was just laughing with Matthew going, we could have had an offer today, but the people who actually came round and saw the house really liked it. So it'll be an interesting thing. If we could have sold it in a day, I would have said, now that's the universe working for you. But there you go.
Yep.
So these little things when you open yourself up to possibilities, and obviously we're talking about when you awaken your heart, and in the write-up for the show I was basically saying you're surprised when you actually do awaken the heart that your heart is it's empty. There's nothing there, and you have to look at some of the questions of what are you, who are you, and where is your heart? Because if you look at it from a point of view, I mean, it is the actual heart is the most amazing pump ever built, and it's in the centre of your chest. So if you opened up your rib cage and looked for it or felt for it, you would find nothing but tenderness. And this is incredible. It may feel a little bit sore and soft, but what it actually does when you awaken your heart is you start to feel much bigger than just your little ego, the little rational mind. And and there may be sadness in your heart, but it's not a sadness from being mistreated or because you feel that you've been insulted, or because you feel impoverished. The sadness is unconditioned. And because we have expanded ourselves, and it occurs when your heart is open and exposed, and it's pure raw heart, and that tender heart of the warrior, that's when you actually get to exhibit the power to heal the world. And it is the warrior's heart. And that's what we're talking about this evening, is about the warrior's heart. Because everybody thinks, the warrior's heart, it's strong and powerful and, but the warrior's heart is tender. And it's the tenderness that actually allows you to put yourself in other people's positions, and actually allows you to go into service for humanity. So it's a really interesting concept, and until I had this great thing about, yes, I'm a spiritual warrior, I've got a strong arm, I'm powerful, I can lift tons of weight, etc., etc. And it wasn't until I actually opened my heart and awakened my heart to gain heart intelligence that I realized that the tenderness of being able to take on or understand other people's pain and suffering is where the strength lies. And that's when you awaken your own heart. It's all very well for us to walk around with this, people have this misconception that, they're either love and light brigade, or they're light workers, or they're this and they're that and the other. And they've missed the point. Totally and utterly missed the point. Because if you make a statement like that, actually, who is in charge of the work that you're doing? And it's ego that's in charge of the work that you're doing. If you allow your heart to open, and it's pure, raw heart, and you have the tenderness of heart, that is actually when you can empower people, and you're not taking their power away from them by saying, I can heal you, and I can do this for you, and I can do that for you. The whole strength of a spiritual warrior's heart is they empower other people, and they're actually, one of the great sayings at Acorn to Oak is we acknowledge people by saying, good job. That was a really good job. Well done for doing that. And realizing and understanding that as facilitators or practitioners in any way, it's making sure the person is keeping their own gold, and they're empowered by it. They understand the whole way of working. And this is very much the tenderness of the warrior's heart. So handing over to Matthew so that he can talk about his insights around the warrior's heart, because I know he's had a good journey along with this concept also.
Yeah, I was just looking through some of my notes, and it was actually on a Break for Freedom course that I first had an experience of heart intelligence and an experience of actually finding out what it is. We were doing an intensive breathwork course, and I came out of a breathwork where I'd done some pretty deep work around family stuff, and I had this cracking pain in my chest, and went straight to Pennie and said, "There's something wrong here. It feels like my chest has just been cracked open." To which Pennie looked at me with a glint in her eye and a smile on her face and said, "Mate, you just cracked open your heart." And after that course, obviously we were doing a lot of deep sort of heart work, and I never realised what is heart intelligence. What is, I know in America one of the corporate terms would be emotional IQ. Well, what is it? If you're in your head, it will be questions, rationalizations, and ego. When you're in your heart, it's pure and truth. There's no questioning. There's no doubt there. It's a very different sort of type of intelligence. When you're used to being in your head and working with your head, and it's very much about how you think and what you think, whereas the heart is about how you feel. And this is something we don't really look into, excuse me, enough. When we're at school, we learn about various different subjects. some of which are obviously very useful. You've got maths, geography, different languages, and that sort of stuff. But there's no lesson around emotional well-being or happiness. And that, to me, really brings home what heart intelligence is, because the heart only wants for one thing, and that's love and peace. And that's really, when you look at it, all that matters. The head would say, oh, would I like a Ferrari and a 5-bedroom house and a big ranch and glamorous holidays, whereas the heart, it doesn't need that. So when you first start doing the work, I found it was really so interesting, because getting different answers from different organs effectively was really interesting for me. So I think one of the biggest journeys was going from and training the ego. We've all, not saying everybody is guilty of this behaviour, but in the world that we've been growing up in, the focus is very much on being successful and being seen and having nice things. And along the way, we've kind of got lost, and I'm very much guilty of this in the past. Not being considerate enough to other people, thinking that I'm more important, or that I've got somewhere to be and I need to be there quicker than you. And you see it out in public, where people can almost have fist fights because they're fighting over a parking space or something like that. So it's very much about how you feel, and having empathy with yourself and also having empathy with others. And it was, really interesting journey, taking yourself out of your mind, where you're just this, it's 10%, the conscious mind. And when you think that a lot of that is ego, unless you've done a large amount of ego training, some of that will be ego. You're not being your genuine self, which is possibly why you're not attracting the things that you would love in your life. Because even if you're not doing it to a large degree, if you're sort of not putting others first and being selfish, then that's going to be mirrored back to you. So the heart work's really important to get into that truth of who you are, what really gets you going, what you'd like to manifest, how you'd like to be seen in the world, and what changes you'd like to make in the world.
That's why
a real interesting journey.
That's why, for me, definitely, those three questions: what are you, who are you, and where is your heart? And one of the great things, and is also, when you awaken your heart, you gain generosity of spirit. And this is the generosity of spirit, I think, is one of the things we just go, and we have no idea what generosity of spirit means. It doesn't mean that you're a doormat and you're constantly giving away everything that you own. We're not all wearing ochre robes here. We're actually, humans, or should I say spiritual beings having a human experience. And therefore, there is nothing wrong with having your preferences met. But, generosity of spirit, which is, quality of a pure, raw heart, is, that's when the tenderness comes in, and actually thinking past yourself, knowing that you have everything you need in the center of yourself. You have the ability to, and therefore you're overflowing, and therefore can hand on the generosity of spirit. And I have a fantastic experience in my life, and I have a lot of people in Acorn to Oak and supporting me, who have amazing generosity of spirit. And it doesn't cost us anything. It's like good manners. good manners doesn't cost you anything. It's just looking at it. And again, I was talking to somebody actually on the phone earlier on today, talking about acts of random kindness, ARC. And, acts of random kindness is a game I love to play, because again, it just allows you to take yourself out of yourself, out of your, the small experience that you and your ego and your rational mind are actually having. And just, for me, when I go out in public, they do allow me out in public sometimes. It's when I'm out in public and, maybe going to the supermarket or, the market or whatever it is. And I'll always make sure I hand at least one trolley. I'll get out a trolley for somebody else, and the next person I'll hand it to them, and then I'll take a trolley for myself. And it's amazing how many people just look at you and go, oh, thank you, that was kind. And I go, well, what are we doing if we cannot show other, humans, beings kindness? I don't have to be in a mega rush. Sometimes I don't do that. It depends on how quickly I need to get the shopping done. But definitely if I'm with Hector, my son, who's 2.5-year-old, we have a whale of a time because we're there to engage with the other people who are in the shop, and we're having a joke and a laugh and making people smile. And making people smile is part of generosity of spirit. It's making their day. And it's realizing that if you can show that generosity of spirit and you can show that tenderness of your heart, then people really appreciate it and really begin to engage with you. And if you want to be popular, and if that's one of your driving forces, or if you want to magnetize people to you, I'll tell you the secret. The secret is generosity of spirit. Because people really engage with it. So if you are listening to me and you want to build a business, always remember generosity of spirit. Always look at it and go, give value plus. Not just value, but value plus. Always go out of your way to do that. And again, this person who I was talking to on the phone earlier on today basically just went, that's what Acorn to Oak and you, Penny, and the whole team are known for, is generosity of spirit. We all know that we can mess up with alarming regularity, and maybe do some really stupid, unthinking behaviour. But what this person was actually saying was, it's the unconditional love and acceptance. You said, you don't tolerate bad behaviour much, but, what you teach us is behaviour is behaviour. It's not actually about you personally. Behaviour is usually set off by a whole series of circumstances, stresses, things, story factory going round your mind. But it actually means nothing about your heart. And that's where the pure, raw heart is. So, we'll see you on the other side of the break.
Your conscious connection to a more mindful world. Om Times Radio. IOM FM. Times Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment, a philanthropic organization. Their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Times, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
I'm Kathy Williams, host of Sexy Mom Abundant Life radio show on Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. On the show, we explore living abundantly in every area of your life. Ways to let go of limiting patterns and beliefs and to step into the flow of creativity and possibility, knowing you are supported by the universe.
We are talking about your life. Ever wonder, is this as good as it gets? No, it could be so much better. At Acorn to Oak, we know you are seeking more happiness, joy, unconditional love, financial freedom, passion, and purpose. Find your unique mojo and live an extraordinary life. Want to know more? Contact us at our website, acorntooak.org.uk.
1 in 3 adults has prediabetes. 1 in 3. That means it could be you, your football buddy, your football buddy, or you, your best man, your worst man, you, your dog walker, your cat jogger. While 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes, with early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its Prediabetes Awareness Partners.
So, hi, welcome back. We're talking about when you awaken your heart. And, you know, it's really important sometimes, you know, again, obviously we're working in the area that I work is, and Matthew was sharing earlier on, is we do an awful lot of, the biggest journey that we take is from the head to the heart. And it's, you know, sometimes it can be pretty scary and pretty nail biting. Depending on whether the heart is ready to awake. And as Matthew was actually saying, is that sometimes it can be quite shocking to think, oof, I've made that journey. It may be during a Breath for Life breathwork session, or it may be doing some other inner child work or whatever it is. And you suddenly get to feel sometimes when the heart is awakening, it can feel like you've got this aching solid piece of ice sometimes, because it's numbed out to the life experience that you've had before. And when people actually start defreezing their heart, it can feel quite scary because you've always numbed out before and you haven't actually felt the feelings. And, you know, it's astonishing as we begin to get a healthier, energetic heart. It can feel like you've got cramps in your chest. Some people have actually said, you know, one stage I thought I was having a heart attack, and I went, no, it's got nothing to do with the physical heart whatsoever. It's got a totally different feel, energetic feel. And I did have to have a great friend of mine, George, basically said, well, you know, I knew that you were the right person to do this work with. You know, you're an ex-intensive care sister. So if I have a heart attack, then I know you're going to revive me. And we had a good laugh about it. And I went, nah, you're all right. It's got nothing to do with that. Because, you know, like with anything, as we stretch our consciousness, the consciousness in our minds, you know, there is a stretching, and it feels like we're stretching a rubber band. And again, it's the same process with the heart when we start to stretch our heart muscle. And you've got to remember, the heart is the most amazing muscle in the center of your body. It's pumping probably anything from the rate of 50 to 80 beats per minute 24/7. When you're awake and when you're asleep, it just continues. It's the most amazing organ. And as we stretch it and we start to look at some of the sadness which is stored in the heart, and when we start to waken it, we can't help but feel sadness. Sometimes sadness at some of the choices that we've made in the past, but also the fact that we weren't aware that this is where our tenderness is seated. This is where our generosity of spirit is seated. And we look at it and we have a tendency to think, oh my God, I've been this really awful person. Whereas in fact we haven't. We've just been living in the consciousness and the heart intelligence that we've had before. So when it wakens up, that's when I say it can be a little bit raw, pure raw heart. But in allowing that, when we allow that pure raw heart, it's amazing when you go out for a walk in nature and you suddenly see more things. You suddenly see the brightness of the flowers. You see the insects on the ground. You see the ants and the bees buzzing, and you suddenly begin to connect with a much larger consciousness than yourself. We can park our selfish needs. We can park all of those things and allow in the tenderness, even to the stage where if a mosquito landed on your arm, you would be concerned and brush it off gently rather than swatting it. And don't get me started, I'm having a little bit of a joke with Matthew here because he does a really good rant on mosquitoes. But it's just allowing yourself to suddenly realise that we are all connected. We are all not only the good things, the nice things, the puppies and the cats and the this, that and the other, but we're connected to the insects. We're connected to all living organisms. And, they have, even insects were designed by the divine. And it's really important just to go, okay, fair enough. If this insect is attacking you in an aggressive way, there's nothing wrong with brushing it off. But also, it's really important not just to go swat it and kill it outright. It's just about respecting other things, and in respecting other living things, the tenderness in your heart grows. And as that tenderness grows, then that's when the power to heal the world comes in. Okay, so I've had my say, so I'm going to hand over to Matthew again and allow him to have his say too.
Yeah. I think for me, one of the important things to get across is we're noticing your own behaviour. Look into where perhaps you can improve things, and if it helps, you may like to. If you're stuck, you'd like to learn a bit more about heart intelligence. Obviously, you can get in touch with us, but just place your hand on your heart and try and ask yourself a genuine question, but don't get the answer from your head. And this may sound like madness at first. However, if you try it a few times, you'll notice the difference. You'll notice when the answer is, there's a truth to it. The mind is generally very good at rationalizing things, working things out, and will always come back at you with a statement or a question rather than the heart intelligence. I find when I first started doing it was I'd use yes and no questions. So what would be the best career? Would a career move be best for me right here, right now? If that's something that's on your mind, if you've got something specific, you maybe you've been going round a certain situation. We all have patterns in life, and you could be asking yourself, why is this happening to me again? And why am I attracting the same situations? It could be the same sort of relationships. Maybe your businesses aren't sort of up and running as much as you would like. And it's very much about going with your heart. Try something different. If something's not working, don't take our word for it. We know heart intelligence exists and we use it at great avail. But for you, if you're not sure and you haven't worked with it before, have some fun with it. Make it a project. So take something that you would like to manifest in a year's time. Where would you like to see yourself? If it is a career move, or you've been thinking about building a business and you're not sure which way to go, check in with your head first. If you get a piece of paper and write down at the top what you would like to work on or what result you would like to see, and then just journal just for maybe 30 seconds or a minute, and just let your head run. And it could come up with various different statements, some of which could be positive, some of which could be negative. And then when you've let your mind run, at the end, ask your mind what it thinks you should do. And you'll be amazed with some of the answers that come back. And then when you've done that, place your hand on your heart in the center of your chest and put all your attention down there. Imagine that you're sending a golden strand from your mind down to your heart. And then just ask real simple questions to start, because this will very much give you the confidence to go, wow, this actually works. And wow, where did that voice come from? Because that's very much what I got from when I first started doing. And just ask specific questions. Should I be in the career I'm in? Yes or no? And then if there's another career you've got in mind, ask if that's the right career to go to, or would building my business around this be the best thing for me? And just keep trying it, and you'll be really interested in the result of it. You'll be amazed to realise that what we're talking about is true, and if we all used heart intelligence, it'd be a very different place. I know when I started doing it myself, what I really connected with and shocked me is just how much we lie to ourselves, just how much our brains give us information that's not necessarily true. It may be true so far as evidence. However, what you do with that evidence is beside the point. If you're positive with it and you say, well, actually, I didn't, that business deal didn't go my way this time. However, it doesn't mean that every business deal is going to be like that. Rather than thinking, oh, well, that deal didn't go very well. Well, maybe I'm not supposed to be doing this. And, well, if the first deal didn't go well, what's to make the second deal go very well? And what we don't realise is we actually poison our own minds with some of the experiences and some of the things we tell ourselves, which is why we say that heart intelligence is so important, because it's the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, without any of the questioning or unhelpful thought forms. How many of us have always been complimented? Every single time we've done something, we've been complimented. Not very many people. How does it feel when someone puts you down slightly or says that, oh, well, I don't think you're very good at that? If we're all honest, it hurts. And if you're told that enough, you actually start believing it. And that's the damage that we do to ourselves, because we tell ourselves stories. Something may not go right once or twice. It doesn't mean that we can't be highly successful. But if we have a few negative experiences and get slightly down on ourselves and start telling ourselves, oh, we're not very good, and this, that, and the other, and we're not very popular, and we'll not have the things that we would like, our lives can turn out completely the opposite from how we would like, which is why tuning into the heart and getting it's what you need, not what you want. And that's when, for me, it made huge changes in my life, because it made me realise where I was engaging with ego too much, and I would put myself first. If I was running for a bus and there was only one space on it, it's like I wouldn't necessarily physically knock people out of the way, but I'd make sure that I got there first. And you think, when the whole world's doing that, it's quite an abrasive place to live. I mean, if you want to know what anger and aggression feels like, go on the London Underground at 8 o'clock in the morning, because I guarantee within a split second you'll feel it. And it's because you've got 50,000 people all travelling in the same direction, who are all worried about being late for work, because if they're late for work, they're going to get told off by their boss. And if they get told off by the boss, it could risk their job, and then their whole life could fall apart. And this is before 8 o'clock in the morning. And you think, there's the madness. There's the insanity, that we're all prepared to run over each other and push each other to get somewhere on time, to make someone more money than we're earning. And it's all fear. And that's where it really made a difference for me, because I could change my behaviours, and by changing my behaviours, my experiences were just totally different. And I would get more experiences of people in heart space rather than head space.
I think it's real important to understand that you've got as many neurons, i.e. brain cells, you've got as many neurons and neuron pathways in your heart as you have in your brain. And that is actually quite astonishing. The heart is run on electricity. There's an electrical impulse that drives the pump. And we're just talking about the physicality of the heart right here, right now. But the energetic side of the heart is, it is a thinking organ. And when you go back to those three questions I actually started off with, is, what are you? You are a huge, massive, energetic, spiritual being, which is wearing a physical bodysuit. And it is just a bodysuit. And, who are you? You have a divine spark within you. And therefore, yes, we are all children of God. We are all, if you're okay with the word God, but we are all divine beings. Now, where is your heart? Luckily, Matthew's already said the centre of your chest, slightly to the left. Your actual heart chakra is actually more centered than your actual physical heart. But it's not about location. I'm not being an estate agent here. It's not about location. That whole upper part of your chest is very much dealing with heart intelligence. And it's really important to, as I said, when you're in a pure raw heart, that's the power, there's the tenderness. So we'll see you after the break.
A conscious lifestyle for a mindful life. Om Times Radio. IOM FM. Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. Times Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single Times endeavor. Host your show with Times Radio Network.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of Times Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On. My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
We are talking about your life. Ever wonder, is this as good as it gets? No, it could be so much better. At Acorn to Oak, we know you are seeking more happiness, joy, unconditional love, financial freedom, passion, and purpose. Find your unique mojo and live an extraordinary life. Want to know more? Contact us at our website, acorntooak.org.uk.
Long ago, you wouldn't think of galloping on a horse while doing calligraphy, and you wouldn't have attempted to ride your bike while typing a letter. Yet you think you can safely operate a multi-ton vehicle while texting? Behind the wheel is no place to multitask. If you want to BRB, drive now and text later. Lives depend on it.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org, a message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, Noise, and the Ad Council.
So we're back after the break, so getting on with what we were talking about earlier on, which is when you awaken your heart. And I was beginning to touch on the fact that, again, people will ask me, well, Penny, when do you know that your heart isn't awake? What does that feel like? And I, again, chatting to people, basically say to them that, your heart is not awake when you are so consumed with your bodysuit, i.e. being in a bodysuit, and you have no awareness of other people's needs. And if you do have an awareness of other people's needs, actually you really don't, frankly, don't give a damn. And it's, and you'll take care of your needs before your friends, before your family, before your loved ones. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with making sure that you have your preferences met, but it's when you do it to their detriment. And you suddenly realise that actually, and again, astonishingly, we see this many, many times with different people who are beginning to awaken their hearts, and they just cannot think beyond themselves. And, it may well be a case of, walking through a door and you actually have the door thrown back at you, and you sort of go, yeah, I'm sure we've all had this happen, and you sort of think, wow, thanks very much, I've just had a door in my teeth. And you just look at it and go, that person just didn't look, they didn't care, they were just they got through the door and they didn't care whether the next person got through it safely. That pretty much tells you that someone is disconnected from their heart center. That they're not actually, when you see people walking down the road or on the London Underground or wherever it be, and they will not make eye contact with anybody else. And you just look at it and go, ooh, they're having a totally different life experience than myself. because they're too, in some ways, they're too frightened even to engage. So if they're frightened to engage with other people, then they're frightened to engage with themselves, and they're definitely frightened to engage with their heart. Because people who have awakened hearts don't live that way. They live they have a totally different life experience than being so insular. The trouble is in society today is we are encouraged to be insular. We're encouraged actually just to look not look within in a healthy way, but actually we're just taking care of our needs. And in the UK, it's like sausages to everybody else. It's like and that we're encouraged to do that. And unfortunately, technology in society today is we're on the phone, we're texting, we're playing games. People don't talk on the at the bus station anymore, because actually they're frightened of engaging with somebody, because actually someone might want something. Someone may actually ask you a question, or whatever it is. I always used to, basically, if I was before I had a car and obviously everything else, when I was a student, I'd be chatting away at the bus station. Everybody would talk to me. I used to actually say that I had a neon sign in energy above my head that said "Not a lover," because everybody would talk to me. But then you get great communications going on. And, again, I find people fascinating. People, humanity fascinates me, because there's so many people out there who've got such great stories to share. And unless you actually allow yourself to listen with your heart open, you don't get to hear these amazing stories and have this great communication with people. I remember when I was a student nurse, and one of the first wards that I did was a male medical ward, and there was a guy on the ward, and he was 103 years old. 103 years old. And I would sit, and people would say to me, well, why aren't you having a cup of tea or sitting down writing your notes or doing what? He fascinated me. This guy was in the Boer War. He was there. He faced Zulus running at him with spears. And I was fascinated by it. I've always been a history buff. But to hear it firsthand was just astonishing. To actually get him to describe the smells and the heat and the flies and all of those things, it was like he was painting an amazing picture just for me, because I was the one who was listening. And afterwards, his son came to me afterwards, unfortunately, because he did pass on whilst he was with us. He was 103 years old, bless his cotton socks. But he said to me afterwards, the conversations I had with him, he loved having, because he had this wealth of knowledge that he couldn't share with other people. And, I think at that stage of my life, I learnt the great benefit of having a tender heart and, being able to be pure and raw and understand other people and listen to other people. And if we could do that for each other, just imagine how this society would change overnight. If we could have that generosity of spirit, of just listening, of just hearing. My mother, bless her cotton socks, is 93 years old this year, and she has dementia. And it was when she first started suffering from vascular dementia, it was a real tough time in my life because I was losing my mum. And, you know, my mum now is a lovely little old lady called Eileen, but she's not my mum. My mum, you know, basically she has very, very poor memory. The things that helped me deal with that pain was the fact that all I had to do was be a witness to her life. And it didn't matter what she was talking about. It didn't matter whether she recognized me as her daughter. What mattered was I heard what she was saying. And again, with generosity of spirit, not making it about myself, but making it about her. And making sure I was 100% present with her and where she was at. And she is amazing. She, you know, she's amazing, and you know, some of the artwork that she does and some of the the daily life that she has is really fulfilling for her. But it's not making it about me. It's not making it about what I would expect my mother to be right here, right now. So, you know, as I said, it's learning the pure raw heart is about getting out of your own way and allowing that tender heart of the spiritual warrior to grow within you. So handing back to Matthew again for a little catch up.
Yeah.
And he knows my mum, by the way.
Yeah, well, I know we've joked about it, and that's that. Again, it's another situation that's led me to realise how the work that Penny does is so important. Because if you can find comedy and laughs in a dark time, then you've cracked it. And very much, I was doing some building work on Penny's mother's house, and she would tell me, we would have amazing conversations for hours on end about stories when Penny's mum was growing up in Shanghai, and she had memories going back to 4 years old. And again, she could explain the time, the date, the exact minute, the smell, where they were, who was there, in such great detail. However, she couldn't remember that she had just paid me and tried to pay me again. And I know Penny and I had sort of conversations that it's amazing that she can remember the past, but can't remember what happened 5 minutes ago. And it was really, it's really amazing when you look at how people remember and what they remember. And it is all the good stuff. The trouble is when we're actually living a life, and obviously I'm not talking about Penny's mum anymore. Is we tend to hang on to all the bad things and worry about the bad things rather than connecting with what's going great at the moment, which is only going to attract more. When we were talking about heart work, one thing that I've noticed is very much when you see someone doing like a public speech, or they're doing a TED talk or something like that. Occasionally, if they get stuck, you'll see them take a minute and actually, whether they're aware of it or not, will place their hands close to their heart. And it just, whether they're aware of it or not, it just allows them to reconnect back with the pure source and then carry on speaking from there, which is why you'll find so many people, you think, wow, their talk was so inspiring. And it's because they're talking from their heart. One person that I had an experience of that earlier in the year is Dr. Sean Stevenson. And this guy literally had me on the edge of my seat for the whole time he was talking. And the inspiration I got from him talking was just incredible. And it's because he was so connected with in his heart, who he was and what his mission is, and how he can help other people. And this is what I love about when people really connect with their heart and their truth is, yes, they do something initially that's going to help them, or you would say they're doing speaking to make money and make a career for them. And it's like that's part of it. But the bigger part is that person has dealt with their own personal stuff and gone through their own personal storm and is now willing to stand up and help others through. We at Acorn to Oak call it the spirit of the buffalo, because it's the only animal that will see a storm and say, right, let's go. The quickest way through the storm is straight towards it, straight through the middle of it. And that's very much where we come from on working on an emotional level. I've had my personal storm just as much as everybody else has it, and it's finding someone that's been through it that can help you through. And again, Penny made a reference to mobile phones and how people are so lost in phones. And I've noticed a big change. In fact, there's a public house down the road from me, and the sign outside the door says, "Don't ask, we haven't got Wi-Fi. How about trying what we did in the 90s? Turn round to the person next to you and say hello." And I just find it so amusing that we have to have signs like that to remind people that they can talk, because you go to a bar and you can have friends that have literally just met up, they go to the bar, order a drink, and they're both on their phones. They're not having a conversation with each other. And these are people we consider our friends. I mean, I've got to be honest, if I had friends like that, I'd probably be buying a lot of phones, because I'd be constantly throwing them away from myself. Because it's just, people don't realise it's just so rude. I love getting up in the morning and going for a walk, and I'll have conversations with people. And there's nothing better than having those pure things, saying hello.
I hope you've enjoyed the show. We've enjoyed doing it, and we'll see you next week. You take care and have a great week.